My name is Dawn Leath, and the reword that God gave me is rely.
You did it.
My story begins where a lot of stories do, way before we ever realize they're going to be part of our story. This particular story starts back in high school when I was graduating, and I received a gift from my favorite Sunday school teacher. Her name was Donna Wilcoxon, and she gave me a devotional book and a journal. I've never been much of a journaler. I'm much more of a doodler. I like to write lists. But for some reason, I just really kind of gravitated toward this journal and began documenting things that I never thought I would. Over the years, that discipline has kind of caught on with me, and it has created what I would refer to as maybe a library of evidence. Evidence of what God has revealed to me. When I'm going through a difficult time or I just need comfort, it's a place where I can record my thoughts. A lot of it is looks like doodles on a page or words that just kind of fall that wouldn't make sense to anybody other than me and the Lord. And so there's something that I have just begun to treasure and I do refer to as my own library, personal testimony that cannot be refuted. I would say that my word rely fits into this part of my story and kind of a retraining of the way that I approach the Lord, the way that I approach Him and in an attempt to rely on Him, and the way that I am learning to unrely maybe on myself. Over the past couple of years, our family has been through a tremendous amount of change. It's all been very good, but it's been very different. In all the quietness and just the change of activity, I started feeling kind of thoughts of darkness and just maybe a little bit oppressed, beginning to feel kind of overwhelmed. And so one particular morning, I just woke up and I just didn't feel like I had the desire or the energy to really kind of open my Bible and start a new quiet time, something new from scratch. And so I went back to my library of evidence, and which is a blessing to have. And I was really searching for something. I needed proof, I guess, that of God's faithfulness, and what better place to look than in my own testimony, in this library that had been built over these years. And so I went to one of my journals and just started flipping through, not really looking for anything in particular, but I came upon this entry, and I knew that it was exactly what I needed for that time. It's a little bit of a random reference. It's from 2 Chronicles 16. And there is a seer named Hanani that comes to Asa and basically is reprimanding him for not relying on the Lord and not going to him in his time of need. And so there's this just beautiful passage. It's only about 2 verses that talk about it. But in my journal, I had written it like a fill in the blank. Because you relied on blank and not on the Lord your God, blank has escaped from your hand. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him. So if I look back, and because I relied on myself and not on the Lord my God, peace has escaped my hand. God's best for me has escaped my hand. Opportunities to glorify God had escaped my hand. These again are consistent. I wish I could say that I had learned and evolved from when I originally wrote this, but unfortunately and sadly, they're very much the same. I'd like to wrap up with one more story, another story from the Old Testament about Abraham and Isaac. God asked Abraham to take Isaac up to the top of a mountain and sacrifice him. It's a kind of treacherous story. It's kind of hard to think about, but in this story, what I see is basically Isaac. Isaac, if we aren't careful and left to our own devices, we all have Isaacs that can become these counterfeit gods, things that we're placing above the Lord. And that was what God was trying to do. He was testing Abraham to see this child that I have given you, that you have longed for years and years and years. Is he more important to you than I am? If not, are you willing to sacrifice him? Seeing how far he would go, like what is the depth of Abraham's love and commitment to the Lord. In this book, Counterfeit Gods by Tim Keller, there's a wonderful excerpt that I just want to share with you, and I think it sums up where Abraham was in this story. It says, "But he did not go up the mountain saying, 'I can do it,' filled with willpower and self-talk. Rather, he went up saying, 'God will do it, but I don't know how.'" And so in wrapping up and closing, if I could encourage you with anything at all, it would be to begin building your own library of evidence. If journaling is not something that you like, or it's something that you don't feel particularly drawn to, make a list, doodle on a page, but begin, if you haven't already, starting this own library of evidence that you can go back to in times of uncertainty, reminding you that reliance on the Lord is really the only way for victory.